Hello, everyone. My name is Suryam Palanki. I am the Pharmacy Informatics Consultant for OIT, and I'm also the federal lead of for the immunization packages for the BI and BYIM. Today, I will be presenting the BYIM application and EHR immunization component. On Tuesday, I went over the setup and troubleshooting of the BYIM. So in this session, it will be more about the functionalities of the application and of the EHR component after actually having an interface in place. These are the learning objectives. At the end of this session, participants should be able to describe the menu options to send HL7 messages and evaluate responses. Compare and contrast RPMS only, state only, RPMS and state displays. Be able to describe differences in immunization context displays that are available, and list possible error messages and how to approach resolution. This is the main screen to the BYIM menu. Once you've completed the installation and submitted your test file to the state, then your interface may be operational. The top portion of the screen displays the updated version of the BYIM package and the HL7 version. The HL7 version is dependent on the version that your SIIS uses, and this can be configured in the setup options along with the other parameter fields that you should have already completed when you're setting up for your interface. Next is the status of the GIS output and format controller background processes. These are necessary for an HL7 message to be created. If they are not running, then you need to contact your local IT support to restart them. To the right side of this information are your next date and time to run your export, import, query, and purge processes. The lower portion of the screen displays 7 functions. There are a few functions I will explain here and the others on the next slides. IZCE, check immunization data export status, will allow the user to get a quick look of the data conversion and file creation process of the IZDE, which is the export file, especially when it's a longer process. I already went over IZTE, which is creating a text export file, and I went over the setup options on the previous sessions, so I won't be going over them here. The IZDE, which is the Start Immunization Data Export, allows you to create an export file. This export will include all ages of patients within a date range. The user can choose to include new or modified immunizations or all immunizations. The user has the option of including historic immunizations if the state doesn't have an updated history of the immunizations. If the site has been manually entering immunizations into the state registry, the initial IZDE may not be needed. This can be programmed in the system to not have the initial export of all the immunizations be done if this is the case. Your local IT support could create a ticket and request to have OIT initiate this process for the OIT support team. Once you type yes, proceed, then this is what is displayed. It provides the number of patients that were processed within an age range. And then the ID data file is created and it's placed in the export directory. The IZFS is a file statistics report. It provides information pertaining to the number of patients, the number of immunizations, the number of no patient matches, the number of new immunizations, and the number of added immunizations. You can select either the file name or a date range to generate a list. It will list out the export or the import files that have been generated. This could also assist the user for troubleshooting purposes when they can submit this over to the OIT support when they create a ticket. The IZSI show immunization exported for a patient option allows the user to review a list of immunizations of a patient that was previously exported to the state. It won't generate a list if the patient's information was never exported to the state. The user has the ability to print this for an individual patient. IZQR immunization queries is similar to the VST in the BI package. It provides additional functionalities to send data to the SIISs and makes it more convenient now for users working in the BI package. I will go over 5 functions on the next slides. The request patient immunization history and forecast option allows the user to send an immunization history and forecast request for one or more patients. This can be set to run automatically in a background job for scheduled appointments for today or at a check-in. This is an additional option that can be used for individual requests. For each patient selected, a request will be sent to each SIIS that is configured for the site. Within a few seconds, the response from that SIIS should be received and stored. The response can then be displayed either in the EHR immunization component or in the review query, also known as VXU response function. Here, it displays that the request was sent to the SIIS and a message ID was created. This message ID can be used later to be reviewed under the review queries. The sent or the send patient immunizations option allows the user to send an unsolicited vaccine record update, also known as Z22 or VXU message, for one or more patients. This type of message is the same as the one being sent at night using a background job. This is not a new option, but gives you the ability to do it manually. The option also allows the user to send all vaccines for the patient or only the new or modified vaccines that have not already been sent. For each patient selected, a VXU message will be sent to each SIIS that is configured for the site. Here's an example. You have 2 options here, whether to send new or edited information or all the information. Then it gives you an option to include historic data. With all options, it gives a date range if you want to set it to a certain period of time. The next thing is to select your patient or additional patients. After you type yes or press enter at the prompt, it will send you a message that it has sent the information to your SIIS that you have set up. The review query or VXU response option allows the user to review the response returned by the SIIS. And again, SIIS is also known as the State Immunization Information System, if you didn't know. Acknowledgement to an unsolicited vaccine record update or a response to an immunization history and forecast request. You can select by patient name, a query date, or by a query message ID. Here is where you could type the query message ID that was generated from the request patient immunization history or forecast request. The user has the option to display as immunization information only or as an HL7 message content. Here's an example of the immunization information only. It is showing the immunization history of this patient. It can also display an error response if the state had a problem with one of the segments. This is what it looks like as an HL7 message. This message content is very helpful for debugging purposes. The review query or VXU sent option allows the user to review the message sent to the SIIS. It can be as an unsolicited vaccine record update or an immunization history and forecast request. This option is mainly for debugging purposes. There is a fix coming to only have the option display as the HL7 message content. The need to have immunization information only is not necessary since no immunization information is in the file. The Send Scheduled Appointment Queries is an option that allows the user to send immunization history and forecast query requests for every patient that has a scheduled appointment or check-in on the date selected by the user. This provides the same functionality as the auto query mode parameter, but this allows you to manually select the scheduled appointments or check-in done on that particular day. This will default to the value used in the auto query mode parameter if it is set. Otherwise, user can select the schedule appointment only or check-in only or both options. And then you select a date you want it for, and you get this example. In this example, the auto query mode was set to scheduled appointments only. The user selected the query all patients on June 12th, and a response would be generated for each patient scheduled on that day. I wanted to just refresh everyone's memory of the query functions on the EHR side. This is the EHR immunization component. The top portion of this screen and to the right of it where it reads immunization record is the source button, which displays additional state forecasts if the site has established a connection with the state IIS. It will either be RPMS or RPMS plus the state you are registered with. It will automatically default to RPMS when you first log into the EHR. The forecast received below is from the source RPMS. Below the immunization history, there are two columns to the leftmost. The first one is a small blank column that will display a flag if an immunization is received from the state that is not in RPMS. The second column is displayed as registry. It displays either RPMS only, state only, or RPMS plus the state. When the source button is RPMS, it will have an RPMS information displayed here. RPMS only displays when an immunization is included in RPMS but is not included in the state registry. State only displays when an immunization was given at a different site and is included in the state download but was not found in RPMS. Most entries should be RPMS plus state, indicating that the immunization is recorded in both RPMS and in the state registry. One thing to note here with viewing state information is that it can only view one state at a time. Once you change the source button to RPMS plus Arizona or RPMS in another state, 2 new buttons appear to the right. In addition, on the right side of the source button, after it says RPMS Arizona or the state, it displays the date on which the state forecast was last updated. Previously, there was a check mark for state forecast. Once you clicked on that box, a separate window appeared in between the forecast and the contraindications. And it was showing state forecast information. And then right above that was the last query date right above that window. Well, that's gone now, and so it's just that that text display that's showing up now. I believe it's because there was some confusion there, and so they created that fix. This text area will also display an error if the last query to the SIIS failed to return data, or if other problems are encountered. In case an error or a problem displays, this will display both in the date field and in the no query response field to the far right. If an error is displayed, the user should attempt a new query by clicking refresh. The refresh state button allows the user to request a new query to the SIIS, which is useful if the date displayed is not current. By clicking the refresh button, it refreshes both the state forecast and the state immunization history elements. The state immunization profile button allows the user to display all information returned from the state after a successful query, or display an error if problems are encountered. Here are 3 examples of the state immunization profile. Example 1, it displays after a successful query. The state forecast displays first, then the state immunization history. In example 2, it displays when there is no response to the query to the state IIS. It is best to contact your local IT support to troubleshoot. In example 3, it is when a query is successful but no patient match can be found. A similar message would display in case of too many matches were found. Again, contact your local IT support to troubleshoot. On this slide, there are additional immunization context display options when you right-click on any RPMS-only entries, and a drop-down menu is shown here. You have the ability to add vaccinations. If it is a recent vaccination, then you have the ability to edit or delete that vaccination. You would not be able to make any changes to the state information in this case. Continuing with this drop-down menu, there are options with being able to print the official record, the due letter, and the local profile for that patient, similar to the respective buttons above the columns. There is an ability to view the case data, the visit details, and web references for that highlighted immunization. The visit detail launches a text-only dialog containing the details of the selected immunization. This is most useful when state IIS data is displayed and space is limited on the immunization component. This concludes my presentation for this session. Does anyone have questions?